Hi everybody, welcome to lesson number 2. This is Cashflow Management. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at how our money moves through us from point of entry until gone forever. My name is Kyle Roseman and I'll be guiding you through this lesson. So before we jump into the weeds, let's take a quick look at how our system works from a high level. This is our model here. As you can see, we have our balance sheet at the top with all of our account balances. Then we see our income statement, and we can see how our money flows through us, generated by our ability to produce an income. Money comes in, we place it in our line of credit, we then pay our bills when they're due, and make a contribution to our cash accounts. So as you can see here, we have some credit resources that are playing active roles in our daily spending habits. These tools are our credit cards and a line of credit. What we're looking at here is a map of our cash flow with an element of time involved. This cash flow model that we're about to jump in here is all based around personal finances and the needs of persons as they go through their life. So we're going to be looking at how to manage debt and how to manage credit cards and credit lines. In conventional terms, what we're going to be talking about here is interest rate theory. Understanding the basics of interest rate theory is going to help you save hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of your lifetime. It's also going to create an immediate impact on your balance sheet right now and could save you potentially up to thousands of dollars right now. This is because you're currently losing money that you felt like you had no control over. We're going to take a look at how we can control our behavior in order to recapture a lot of money that is currently slipping through our pockets. We have 3 different financing products that we are offered from banks. We have credit cards, we have loans, and we have credit lines. These all are different in structure and in function, but they can be put together in a systematic way to work together in order to launch you forward. In order to understand our system, we first have to understand these tools and how they're structured. So let's start by taking a look at our credit cards. Our credit cards have 2 periods, our billing period and our grace period. We accumulate expenses and a balance when we're in our billing period. And when our billing period closes, a balance is recorded. That balance is due in full at the end of the grace period, on the due date. No matter how much you pay, if you don't pay in full, you will be charged interest on the full balance recorded on the recording date. This is something that's very important to remember and understand. So if you pay half of your balance by the due date, you're still going to pay interest on the entire balance that was recorded. So the only way in which we don't pay any interest is if we pay our full balance, because we can also make what's called the minimum payment, and that's basically just going to be the interest charge plus a little bit of the balance that you owe. Typically, the billing cycle is about 30 days, and the grace period is anywhere from 14 to 25 days. The main advantage of credit cards is that they give us the ability to make a purchase without forfeiting our cash. We can do this free of charge as long as we pay off our credit cards in full every month. A line of credit works quite a bit differently. Just like a card, we have a limit, but they work different in that they are liquid, so you can pull cash directly from it, and they're also different in how they charge interest. Credit lines are charged interest based off of a daily average balance. This means that every day there's a snapshot of your account that's taken, and at the end of the month, your account is charged based off of the average balance times your agreed upon interest rate. In other words, you're charged on your usage. You're charged on how much money you use and for how long of a period of time you use it for. What makes a line of credit such a valuable thing is that they're completely liquid, so you can take out cash from it. You can go on your online banking and you can transfer cash from your credit line to your checking account or your savings account. You can go into the bank and you can pull money out of it. And you can do this without any sort of fee. So like your credit card, you're going to get charged what's called a cash advance fee. And this does not happen in a a line of credit. The other way in which lines are different than cards is that lines typically have a much lower rate. So at Bay Federal Credit Union, the rate right now is somewhere around 10% for a credit line. Whereas credit cards, typically it's about 18 to 24%. But again, both these tools are structured differently and you use them differently. Therefore, there's a difference in how much interest is charged. Another financing tool, the third one, is simply a loan. A loan works like this. A lender agrees to lend the borrower a certain amount of money for a certain amount of time at an agreed upon interest rate. The lender then calculates how much the borrower will pay in interest over the lifetime of the loan, and the loan is then broken down into a payment schedule in which the interest is paid up at front. And so how it works is that the borrower pays off the interest first and then starts to pay off the money they actually borrowed. And the way it works like this is that's a way for the lender to kind of manage their risk of lending the borrower money. So let's take a look at an example real quick. This is a 5-year loan, very high interest rate of 15%. On the left side, you can see the monthly obligation, and on the far right, you will see the total payments made. Moving to the left from there, we see the amount of money that has been spent on interest, and the next is the amount of principal that we've paid off. And left of that, you are looking at the individual payment statistics when we look at the interest percentage versus the principal percentage and the cash values of that in relationship to each payment. This is just a snapshot of a loan. It's not actually the entire schedule. I just wanted to show a little snapshot here of what's going on. As you see, with every payment, the portion of interest goes down. This is a representation of the lender charging interest up front. The last payment of the loan will be over 90% principal because at that point, the interest has really been collected by the lender already. The length of a loan affects this ratio, the principal and interest ratio, in a major way. So when we look at a mortgage, what's going to happen is, like, let's say a 30-year mortgage, the first 5 years, the first 10 years, really the majority of the mortgage payment every month is actually just interest. So again, loans are structured in this way so that the bank can manage the risk that they assume by lending you money, especially over a long period of time, such as 30 years. Banking is a business model that was created to drive profits from the movement of money. So the more that we understand the banking system, the more we can mirror that behavior within our own and profit from that. That kind of summarizes the 3 different tools that we have. We have credit cards, we have credit lines, and we have amortized loans. That kind of wraps up the first part of lesson number 2, which is understanding these various tools. We're going to move on into section 2, which talks about the line of credit and how to use it. That's called the sweep account. If you want to run through this video one more time, I encourage you to do so. Make sure to read the material if you're feeling lost about any of these concepts. And otherwise, let's move on into the sweep account. Hi guys, welcome to part 2. We're going to start talking about the sweep account. The sweep account was a concept, or is a concept, that was developed for commercial financing. And basically, what it is it solves a need. It solves a need for active cash flow streams that carry debt as a way to satisfy operational needs and expenses. What it is basically a financing system that revolves around a line of credit, and it's used for businesses to pull funds from in order to cover operational costs. And then as the business produces income through its activity, the company pays off the line of credit and pockets the profits. What makes a sweep account is that money coming in from the business is deposited directly into the line of credit instead of a business checking or some other account. money comes in from accounts receivable and is directly deposited right into the line of credit. That's the sweep account strategy. So the cool thing is guess what? We are active cash flow streams, and we have to carry debt as a way to satisfy operational needs, food, clothes, and shelter. Our cash flow stream is based upon our ability to make an income, to make an earning. And our long-term debt that covers our operational expenses is our mortgage, auto loans, student debt, stuff like that. Operational expenses that require financing tools and loans in order to make our life better. And so we're going to use this strategy to kind of blow through that debt, because it's really a very efficient way to pay off these long-term debts that we take on as we live our life. So as we take a look at our model again, we're going to see that we're going to blow through that debt through assuming this behavior of commercial financing. It works like this. We pull funds from our line of credit and we place them in our long-term debt. As we earn our income, we place that money in the line of credit before we use that money to pay off our bills. So let's take a look at what's going on here and why we're doing this. I'm going to share with you my first experience of using this strategy, and it was on myself. Now, I had the world against me, basically. I had quite a bit of credit card debt, and I had this line of credit kind of randomly from Wells Fargo, and it was 15%. And I went to go apply for a consolidation loan to consolidate funds from the line of credit as well as some credit cards. And the loan that they gave me was actually a 15% loan. It's like way too high. But I took it anyway, and I ran this sweep account strategy on it. Now you might think, how could this even work? Because I got a loan for 15%, and I have a line of credit for 15%. So how would that even save me any money by transferring debt from the loan to the line of credit? Now, one of the reasons why this is such a good example is because it really shows how this strategy works because of how interest rate theory works. So remember, the line of credit is interest only, and the loan is amortized. And so basically that means the payments that I'm making on the loan, I'm losing more money on interest rather than the line of credit. So in this example, I took $6,000 from the line of credit and I put it towards the loan. Now take a look at what happens to the payments here. What you can see is the interest portion drops from $173 to $96. As you can see, it was already dropping $2 every month, but at that point it drops significantly. So by placing $6,000 in the loan from the line of credit, my payments end up shifting so that $75 of that payment, it was like $333. Now $75 of that every month is going towards paying off the principal, where before it was going just to paying off the interest. Now, you might be thinking, well, okay, but you took that out of the line of credit and you're paying interest on that line of credit. And you're right. And so every month I was actually paying about $26 on that line of credit. And so there is still a savings there. Now, the way the sweep account works is it absorbs debt pretty rapidly, because what we end up doing is we push all of our expenses into the future as our income kind of collects in that line of credit. And so throughout time, the balance is really dropping and the amount we pay in interest is really dropping. But I want to take a look at something here. So over the course of 12 months, I'm saving $75 in the loan every month while it's getting redirected to principal. And we'll just say that for those 12 months, I'm still continuing to pay $26 on the line of credit. So what happens is I end up saving about $900 in that first year on the loan through the monthly interest redirection. And then I end up paying about $312 in interest to use that line of credit. So all in all, I'm saving about $588 through the monthly savings and redirection of interest into principal. There's another scenario in which it's profitable, and that is that it actually shortens the length of the loan. So over the whole course of the loan, it was supposed to be a 5-year loan, but instead I end up paying it in about 21 months. According to the original schedule of the loan, I would have paid about $6,000 in interest over that 5-year period. But since I placed funds from the line of credit in that loan, I ended up paying that loan off in 21 months instead. And so the amount of money I spent on interest in borrowing that money went down from $6,000 to $1,300. So what happens is, over time, that line of credit, the sweep account, dissolves the debt, dissolves that balance that I'm carrying it on, or that I'm carrying on it. I wanted to bring in this example because I wanted to show that this strategy can be used pretty much for anybody wherever they're at in their life. Really, where it really gets cool is when you use it on a mortgage. And we're going to go over that in a later chapter when we talk about kind of how to manage equity. We're going to go through this strategy on a mortgage, and we're also going to look at some other things. But for right now, I'm going to give one more example on how to use this in kind of a consumer debt scenario. Again, dealing kind of with credit cards. So in this example, we're going to be taking a look at a friend of mine. She was interested in personal organization and asked me to take a look at her books. So this is where I found her. She was in a pretty good situation, better than mine, that's for sure. She was concerned about having around $4,200 in credit card debt, although she did have a check coming in for about $4,000. So she wasn't really too worried about it. However, I got to show her how to keep that $4,000 check in her cash account and pay off her credit cards using the sweep account strategy. So it takes about 4 or 5 weeks for this to catch up. But what happens at about that time, let's take a look at her balance sheet. Her regular income was around $2,500 a month, which matched that of her expenses. She carries those expenses on her credit cards every month while keeping her regular income in the line of credit until her bills are due. The line of credit is carrying her old credit card balances somewhere around $4,200. However, it's hiding $2,500 of that because her income is temporarily placed there. Significant advantage here. Now she has twice the amount of cash reserves than she did, equating to about 3 months of her active income, putting her in a very safe position financially. Also, all of her credit tools are active with low balances. So let's take a look at the line of credit and what's going on here and how it kind of starts off. At first, we see the withdrawal, and then we see her deposit her income into it every week. Here we can see where her active income rests before it's withdrawn to pay her bills. Also, remember the cash account contributions that we talked about when we were putting together our budget? That also comes out of the line of credit. So that also gets temporarily placed in the line of credit to bring the balance down, but we have to remember to take it out and put it into our savings, because every month we want to be saving a little bit and be growing our equity. Supposedly, my friend was completely cash flow neutral, meaning that her budget completely equaled what she made. She spent $2,500 every month. She earned $2,500 every month. But if you look back to our budget, hopefully some of us had a balance at the end of the month, every month. That means that all of our expenses subtracted from our income, there was a little remaining balance. So that balance is what stays in the sweep account, and it starts to pay off that line of credit over time. So hopefully we're earning more than our budget. And when we are, and we're using the sweep account, it's bringing that balance down. Even if we're only like $50 cash positive every month, it's still going to pay that down. So the real magic to how this all works is to maximize the amount of time that you can keep your cash in that line of credit to bring that balance down. And then every month it's also dropping because you're cash flow positive. So we want to find a way to keep our money in the line of credit for as long as we can before we have to pull it out to pay off our bills. The amount of time that goes by from when you make a purchase to when you actually forfeit the cash in return for that purchase is called float time. So if I go to buy a gallon of milk and I pick up the milk and then I pay for it 30 days later, I get 30 days of float time. And so in order to maximize our float time, we're going to get very thoughtful with how we use our credit cards. And we're going to take a look at that in part 3. So that's next, credit card management system. And I hope you enjoyed this. Again, feel free to run through it again if you want to, and make sure you're reading the written material that goes along with this. All right, guys, welcome back. This is part 3. We're going to talk about the credit card management system. The last section, part 2, we talked about the sweep account. So now we're going to talk about how to float our expenses into the future, kind of in the best way possible without getting too crazy with it. So let's take a look. Once again, let's familiarize ourselves with kind of how credit cards work. So we have the billing cycle and we have the grace period. So we're going to introduce another period, and this is the first 10 days of the billing period. We're going to call this period the usage period. The usage period, simply marks the time in which we use the card. And we're going to use the card for the first 10 days of the billing cycle, or the billing period, and then we're not going to use it. We're going to put it on hold, and we're just going to let it go, and we're going to float those 10 days of accumulated expenses. We're going to float those for about 45 days into the future, and then we're going to pay them. And that 45 days is the float time. And so then what we do here is we get 3 credit cards, and it's a healthy number of credit cards to have, and you basically use them in accordance to what time of the month it is. And you have to call the credit card companies and you schedule your billing cycle or your billing period, but you can do that. It's totally cool. You have the right to do that. And what you do is you schedule your first credit card on the 1st of the month, and then the second one starts on the 10th, and the third one starts on the 20th. And you use each one for 10 days, and then you float all those expenses 45 days into the future, which is actually about 6 weeks. So you get about 6 weeks of float time from when you're using your cards until when you're paying for it. And this is really cool because it helps you push all those expenses into the future. And in the meantime, you can accumulate all your income at a faster rate in your line of credit than at which you're really forfeiting your cash to cover all your living expenses in your budget. A very, very crucial thing that you have to understand about this is that you have to pay your credit cards off entirely, especially if you're at the stage where you're kind of using this strategy on consumer loans and it's not quite as big of a spread as it would be on a mortgage. You really have to make sure that you pay off your credit cards completely when they're due. And that's because in doing so, you get to float all your expenses for 6 weeks completely free of charge. It's a totally free service that's out there. And if you do it correctly, if you're on it with your behavior and you time this right, it's really, really, really beneficial. And that's why it's crazy to me that people say, oh, cut up your credit cards, don't use them, like credit cards are bad. It just drives me crazy because this system will save you so much money, and it's all based on really just being smart with how you use your resources that are available to you. So, again, with this, what we're doing is we're cycling 3 cards. We're using each card for 10 days, and we're being proactive with our credit card companies. We're calling them, and we're having them schedule our billing periods when we want them so that we can use these credit cards in this way, and we can push all of our expenses 6 weeks into the future until we actually forfeit that cash. Therefore, we can keep that money in the sweep account and create a profitable situation within our overhead debt that we're carrying that kind of makes our life where it's at today. Because that's kind of the way that it works. That's the environment that we live in. We kind of have to manage having debt, and whether it's an auto loan or a mortgage. So this is a really, really cool way, and this is pretty much how everybody should be really spending their money. But it takes a lot of kind of effort, and it takes some time to kind of get used to it. So the big thing about this lesson here is really to kind of get familiar with your credit card statements and how they work. Get familiar with understanding, how much to pay, how to pay your balance in full at the end of the month, making sure you know exactly when to pay it by. Don't be shy. Get on the phone and call your credit card companies, because this is really what it's all about. To kind of live a healthy financial life is really to be on it. Every bank will always accuse you of not having yourself together every time you go, whoa, what's up with this charge here? What's up with that charge there? And it really is up to us to kind of be proactive. And the way that banks make so much money is because kind of people really just kind of kick back and they don't read the fine print. So, really familiarize yourself with your statements every month. Take a look at them. Make sure you're paying them off in full, and get on the phone and call them and schedule this out. And for some of you, this might also mean that you're applying for new cards. And, take a look at that. Take a look at which cards are going to give you the best rewards. See what's out there. Kind of have fun with this, because this is where we really start saving a lot of money. And this is really where the exciting part kind of happens. So to finalize this lesson here about cash flow management and how to integrate the 3 financing tools that we have, let's just take one more look at this whole model here. So what you're going to see is the balance sheet up at the top, your various accounts. Money's coming in again through the green arrows, and it's going through the line of credit. And at the bottom, we're going to see our 3 credit cards being used, pushing off all of our active living expenses 6 weeks into the future. This is going to allow us to maintain a low balance in that line of credit, because we're going to kind of hide debt that we're carrying there by parking our active income within that line of credit. That line of credit is liquid, and at the end of the month, or when our bills are due, we're going to take cash out of that credit line and we're going to pay those bills off. We're going to do this in order to save on interest in the long run through our loans that we're carrying, if we have any. This is a great strategy that everybody should be incorporating in their lives. There are consulting companies across the country that teach this, and they charge anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. So really take a look at this and figure out how to incorporate all these concepts into your life, into your habits. How to push off when you forfeit your cash as far into the future as you can. How to stack your cash for as long as you can before getting rid of it. All these things kind of keep in mind. Be proactive. Use your resources that you have available, because it is actually, you can make it. You can make it. There's ways we can stretch our dollars pretty far because of these resources that we have. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you kind of really understand how the whole system works. Definitely make sure to catch up with all the reading, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you very much. Have a great day.